Hey there, community. My name is Boo. I am one of the community evangelists over on the F5 DevCentral team. DevCentral is F5's online community for all of our users to come collaborate and get together and learn how to use their F5 devices and services. And one of the things that we do on DevCentral, if you haven't seen this before, is we live stream it. We talk to the community in real time. And so that's what we're doing today. And we usually do this on Tuesdays at 8:30 Pacific. We have a show called DevCentral Connects. And today what you're seeing is what we'll call a pop-up show. And sometimes we have topics that come up that require some attention immediately. And so that's what we're doing today. We're going to talk about we'll talk about our recent quarterly security notice. So similar to something like a Microsoft Patch Tuesday, we've started to organize our releases of security notifications quarterly. And so we had a recent announcement about that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And we'll also talk about, in general, that's raised a lot of questions around iControl. Some folks that haven't had experience with our iControl API before. And so we'll be talking about that in a little bit as well. I just wanted to remind folks, though, so if you're watching us from all the different platforms that we're streaming to right now, we're on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on YouTube. You'll want to be subscribed to the YouTube channel. So you can head over to youtube.com/devcentral, hit subscribe on there, hit the bell for notifications. This is one reason why you want to have that notification bell on, is because we do sometimes go outside of that regularly scheduled time and do these pop-up shows to address certain things. And so you would have got the notification for that if you had that kind of stuff turned on. We also have an online community platform, which is community.f5.com. This is our message forums. We have our technical articles on there as well. The community gets together over on that platform, so you want to be subscribed on there. And when we do our live streams, we place all of the show notes on threads over on a group in that community platform called the DevCentral Connects group. And so all of the follow-up notes, just in case you're not jotting them down from the comments that are rolling through, you would head over to the show threads individually and grab all that from there. So everything that we'll talk about today, all the notes and the links that we'll have, we're actually going to head over to the community platform and we'll paste that all in there, so you don't have to worry about quickly grabbing all the links as they fly by on the chat there. I will remind everyone, this is real time. So, and this is live, at least, what we're doing right now. So if you're in the comments, you can start asking your questions in there, and we'll try to address them as best we can. When it comes to the CVE stuff, we don't have our security incident response team that's on with us right now. So some of that stuff we may have to park for them if it's questions that they would need to answer. And we'll talk about the various ways to get a hold of them as well. So having said all that, today, I'm not alone today. I am joined by my colleague, Jason. So I'll bring on Jason as well here. Hold on. Let me move my mouse over. Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing very good, actually. Very, very good. Looking forward to this little pop-up show, actually. I know people were excited to learn more about iControl REST, but also talk a little bit about the CVE. So having said all that, maybe we can get into the CVE stuff, the quarterly security notice, and talk through what's come up on there. I think the biggest thing that people brought from that is we do have a CVE that was announced that was scored a 9.8, right?
Yes, that is the CVE 2022-1388. And you can find that in knowledge article K2360536. We'll drop that. Oh, there it is. Yep. Thank you, research team. And so that one is the iControl REST vulnerability. If we step back just for a second, and we wanted to talk about the way that we release vulnerabilities, and before it was we release them as they come, right? And so then that kind of puts a bigger burden on customers to upgrade, because if you have several in a row, say like week apart or whatever, I mean, you're not even done with the first round of upgrades. Then you got to do, or patches rather, you got to do another round of patching. So the transition to quarterly notices, I think, has been a good one, and it gives plenty of time to get all the ducks in the row on our end, as well as providing a clear path for customers. Okay, here, this is where you need to go for everything that we're releasing. It's all taken care of, and that notification, I'll drop that in the comments. Just the overview from May is in there for this latest one.
Is that on
And
your screen share? Or you
oh yeah, I could
can you
just
tab
I
that
can
up?
just pop that up. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So, the overview of F5 vulnerabilities for May. And as you said, it's like you break them down. We've got the one critical, we've got some highs, but for each one, you have listed in there what's affected, where it's fixed. And so, like in one place, you don't have to be constantly watching, like on a daily basis, what's vulnerable, what's vulnerable. We do it once a quarter. And so I think that's helpful in a lot of ways. There may be arguments, pro and con and all that, but from my perspective, I think that's a good move. It was a really good thing to transition to. And
Yeah,
so,
and we've had, to add a little bit of color to that as well, we've had on Brian McHenry before. He's a VP of product management when it comes to Big IP and Nginx security. And we've talked through this quarterly security notice with him before. And what this allows F5 to do is we have our own security research teams that work on our own products that are discovering these vulnerabilities, right? And as much as people might say, oh, you guys have a whole bunch of vulnerabilities that were released, a majority of these were discovered by F5. Where they're not discovered by F5, we credit the security researchers. They've gone through best practices with disclosure and made sure that we had time in order to patch everything and release on a quarterly release on the quarterly notice. There are instances where the researchers feel that they need to talk about vulnerabilities faster than when we would actually be able to patch them. And in those instances, there might be something that might happen, outside of the routine quarterly security notice. But this is a representation of F5 doing that security research on our own products and then releasing on a cadence so that people can plan ahead and kind of know. And hopefully, after these last couple, people are getting used to, hey, quarterly security notices coming up. We just have to get ready to patch. We've actually had shows previously as well on automated upgrades on a big IP. I believe it was Sebastian that came on with you, Jason, and went through that.
yep, yeah, it used Ansible and gosh, what was that? That was for 5902, I think. And yeah, he in the comments of the 5902 show that we did, he's like, yeah, I like in a matter of an hour and a half or whatever, upgraded all 54 of my boxes. Like, no big deal. And I know I worked for a pretty large enterprise, and at the time we had at least 50 in between our development environments and our production environments. And for us back then, with no automation, I mean, we're talking weeks of prep and plan and maintenance windows and all of that thing. And so, to be able to just, no big deal, crank that out in an hour and a half, that's the power of automation and the power of community. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Did you have any other notes on the CVEs, Jason, or did you want to
So
talk about
just this
iControl?
specific CVE that we're going to talk about, iControl, but this specific CVE talking about the rest, and some CVEs are theoretical, and the threat land, and they could be pretty high, but maybe not as easily bypass. This one, they dropped the proof of concept pretty quickly, and it's it's pretty trivial. So if you have not patched, patch. I just want to say that the seriousness. I mean, obviously, a 9 out of 10 should be serious enough for to get your attention, but it's serious, and obviously, there's ways to mitigate this and reduce your threat landscape. Please don't put your interfaces unprotected on the internet for the things where you can make changes on your boxes, because with big IP, you can expose the management interfaces, REST, SOAP, the GUI. You can expose all of those on a self IP But on your traffic interfaces, it kind of a recommendation is if you have an interface that has traffic going through it, unless you absolutely have to, don't expose that to your to traffic. Through traffic is fine. To device traffic, not so fine. Use the management interface for that, or dedicate a traffic interface to management traffic and don't pass traffic through that. So those would be the quick things on this specific CVE that I would say. And so if you have questions on that throughout the show, no problem. And then the final thing I'd say on that is, if you go through and all these CVEs, they have like indicators of compromise in the notes. And so you can come down here, and if you see any kind of uncommon traffic or whatever, maybe you use iControl REST for things, but you don't ever use the bash command, and you see the bash command, well, that might be something that you want to check out. And so you can look in the REST JavaD audit logs for connection information, right? That'll tell you, hey, they ran this command or they used this interface rather, and they got a status of 200. So whatever they did, that worked. But it doesn't necessarily tell you what command within bash that they ran. That's where you'd go to varlog audit and match the timestamp to that to the actual command. So you'll see, the -c ID there. That information would show up in varlog audit. So go through the indicators of compromise, make sure you're analyzing if you do have these interfaces exposed and you're not limiting to your personal IP space and all that. And we'll get into that on the other half of the show. But then we have another article here. It's K11-438-344, and it's considerations and guidance when you suspect a security compromise. So kind of walk you through kind of what to do and things to consider. Obviously, you should have your own incident response program and plan for these kinds of things, but this will be helpful if you haven't had to go through that before.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. And if folks aren't, the viewers aren't noticing, if you're not on YouTube right now, you may want to switch over to YouTube. If you're watching this from LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, on YouTube, the research team is on fire right now. Tons of helpful links that are dropped in the comments there. So you can pick them up if you wanted to from the YouTube live chat replay or the live chat that's happening right now with all those links dropped in there, or head over to community.f5.com. We'll have a follow-up show thread with all of the links pasted into there as well. Jason, should we transition to the iControl discussion at this point?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay. We're just going to do a little bit of a reconfiguration, and we'll be right back.
The F5 Community DevCentral has a new home. You can visit community.f5.com to get all your F5 technical questions answered or answer some yourself. We also got technical how-to articles, troubleshooting tips, and great insights on how to keep your applications humming. Of special note is our Crowdsource area, and this is where you can share your own code and insights with the DevCentral community. Membership is free and gets you access to special events, unique groups, and other enticing activities. Why don't you join today?
Alrighty, welcome back, folks. Now we're going to have a little bit of a chat around iControl. This is the API on the Big IP platform, and through some questions that have come up through our Ask F5 knowledge base and our technical support folks. There's a number of folks that are maybe just starting to discover iControl and just starting to hear about it, and so they had some basic questions around iControl and securing iControl. So we'll step through some of those at this point now. Jason, I'll turn it to you for walking us through some of that.
Okay, well, first, just a little history lesson, right? What the heck is iControl? iControl was born out of the brain of Mr. Joe Pruitt, co-founder of DevCentral, the community platform that we run on, and he built iControl originally with a Corba interface, and then transition to SOAP, which is still supported on the platform, by the way. You can use traditional iControl and make SOAP calls. Obviously, a lot of the newer interfaces in the last several years aren't available. There's not parity between SOAP and REST, but there's some things in SOAP that weren't moved forward into REST for whatever reason. Some of them were security reasons. Some of them were just product development decisions and all that. But you can still use the SOAP interface, and so that is an interface that you need to be aware. If you expose management interface, if you expose port 443, people can talk to the SOAP interface, whether you decide to use it or not. It's exposed. The same is true of iControl REST, and with the newer things like iControl LX, it uses the REST interface, but a slightly different worker on the REST Java D side. But all those things are exposed on the big IP if you have port 443 available either on a self IP or which is default on the management interface. And so when people ask the question, which is the next question, how do I know if I'm using iControl REST? The reality is, if you have an exposed interface, it's available. It doesn't mean anybody's using it, but it is available. And so if you have that 443 exposed on a self IP, just know that people can talk to that service. And the awesome Ask F5 team yesterday released K5003, K500352. You can read it there. How to determine if a big IP is using iControl. Obviously, as I just said, just to reiterate, the service is available regardless of whether you're using it. But here's a way that you can actually go in and look. Hey, am I using this? And so if I take one of their commands here, and I'm going to stop my screen and share a different interface here real quick. Normally I could just share a screen, but Chrome is not having it today. So give me a second here. Can you guys see? Yeah, it's just not working. Okay, well, just so as you know, run that command. I have a big IP that is not that I have not configured, and when I run that command, there's nothing that shows up. It returns null. And so if I were on a system that I was using all the time and these commands returned null, let me go ahead and share that back, just so you can see the. All right. There we go. So if you run any of these commands, looking at top URIs that you're hitting, top source IPs, top users in your iControl logs, then if it returns null, you're not using it, even though the service is available. If it does return, it means somebody in your organization has used the iControl interface, or somebody not in your organization has used the interface. So if those records turn up at that point, then you want to turn over to a var log audit, and you want to match up your timestamps with whatever was run. And a lot of that stuff, like organizationally, people will pull stats or look at objects. Maybe you'll use iControl REST to make configuration changes and whatnot. So those things are very common. What's less common is running commands, like running a quick view. You can do that. Running a TCP dump. I have a script that I released earlier this month, or actually it was back in April, where you could run TCP dump from Bash via iControl REST. So there's benefits to doing those things, but it's far less common. And if you don't do it, but you see those logs, well, then maybe that's an indication of compromise in the system. All right. So next question is, how do we, knowing that the service is available, and we don't use it, how do we block that off? And what you want to do on self IPs is, if you don't need access to the GUI via a self IP, just take that from your allowed ports, do port lockdown, remove 443 on anything that is a through interface, where traffic's going through the box. Because usually you want a separation of access. You want your traffic that's flowing through the box. You want to access your box on either the management port or a dedicated traffic interface, so that you don't have to, balance the needs of what's listing on that virtual server. And let me see. And then, so don't expose system services on traffic interface if you don't have to. The next comment is like even on your management interface, you want to make sure that the only access there is from trusted systems. So maybe you have a jump box, you have a secured network region, and so in your DMZ you have isolation of purpose and all that stuff, so that not just everybody within your organization, because routing, can get to your management interfaces. You want to lock that down because even though you want to trust all of your employees in this era of trust but verify, really you don't want to trust. You lock it down, zero trust everywhere, and make sure everybody has intention to be there from an authorization standpoint, but also everybody has access to be there, and so you want to lock that down. And with that, you can use in 14, and I didn't know this as I was doing research for this show, you don't have to have AFM in 14X and forward. You don't have to have AFM licensed or provisioned in order to use AFM access rules for the management interface. So in this, it kind of walks you through that. If you do have an earlier version, you will have it's available for the management interface, but you do have to have AFM provision for it. 14 forward, that's not the case. So if you're already at 14, great. And I'll say, kind of with locking down iControl in general, let's see, Stephen Manthe, team listening. Okay, yeah. There you go. To see what you're allowing right now. Thank you for that. And so beginning 14.1, you can use the AFM rules. Highly suggest you do that. And then for the management interface, you can, if you're on earlier versions, you can use IP tables. You're getting into the Linux sysadmin weeds there. But if that's what you have, that's what you have. You can use IP tables to do that, especially for those of you who might be on 11x, 12x. The CVE fixes they're not coming. They're not fixing those because maybe you're on 11x and you didn't know this, but 11x was end of life last week, and 12x is end of life this week. So there's no fixes coming for you. And if you can't upgrade yet, IP tables is an option for you. We'll share those resources as well. And then, so we have the overview bigger than iControl. There's an overview of securing access to the big IP system in general. And so, we'll share those as well. But iControl is a fantastic thing. I use it all the time. In fact, I love it. I love being able to automate, and that's kind of the future of products. But, you got to be careful with everything that you use to kind of understand use cases, understand your traffic, make sure you review logs on a regular basis so that as new log things, hey, maybe you have whether it's a Splunk or one of their competitors, Graylog or whatever, you have filters that are kind of tracking, hey, I haven't seen that command before. And so if there's something new that comes in to a log, then you flag that and look for review. So there's all kinds of things that you can do on the telemetry side, not just the post incident side, to give you insight into kind of what's going on in your environment.
Cool. If anybody has any questions at this point, I know the chat has a lot of links in there, and just as a reminder, we are going to post those into the show thread afterwards. But if you have any questions right now, amongst all the live folks, please do let us know. We'll try to do more of these as we talk about subjects that relate to questions that have been really lively lately within the community and potentially within Ask F5 and our support as well. But please do go ahead with any questions that you might have. I think one just popped up on there.
Yeah. So yeah, this is what I was mentioning with Peter. You could always use a virtual server for iControl and secure it with a WAF policy. Absolutely. And that's where I was mentioning, it's like if you want to have traffic to the big IP instead of through the big IP on a traffic interface, you can definitely do that. Just dedicate it. Because in this case, secure it with a WAF policy, you're good to go. So that's a good practice there, Peter.
Yeah, awesome. Very cool. And if there aren't any more questions at this point, what we'll say is you're always welcome to jump on to community.f5.com. Check out the thread on there. Join as a member so that you can comment on the thread, ask your questions on there. Again, we have show specific threads that are in a group called DevCentral Connects. You just have to go under the groups tab and locate the group, click on it. You just have to click request to join the group, and then you'll just be immediately or within a couple minutes, I think, you'll be allowed access into the group. We have all of our follow-up notes on there. All the stuff that the research team is posting will be added to there as well. If you have any other things that you want to see on these shows as well, just let us know, and we will try to accommodate or plan shows around based on feedback as well. That might be it for today. Jason, do you have anything else to mention?
I don't, other than good on you, Al, for patching as we're doing this thing. We've got live patching going on, so that's fantastic. We got another one in there. From Ron, can sys HTTPD allow be effectively used to block? Okay, in the CVE there is a mitigation if you can't get to patching right away. Let me see if I can find that real quick. So in the syshttp, they have the mitigation for that. Let me share that out real quick. Okay, and now it can't access my screen again. So Chrome's just being weird, but in the CVE, it gives you the fix action in the HTTP configuration on Big IP. If you're not able to patch right away, there is a mitigation that'll block it, and so you can do that. Best recommendation here is to patch, but if you can't get there, today or whatever, get that, at least get the mitigation done. And I think some of these things, and I'm not seeing it right here. Some of these things sync from box to box. Some of them don't. And so you just make sure if you sync, go check your HTTP config on the other box. You might have to do it to each device. I'm not really sure if that property does, but since it's a TMSH property, it should. But just verify.
Yeah, I think you
got it. Okay, there you go.
Part here, right, Jason?
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. And that is in the K article. So this K article is K236053446. We'll drop that into the show notes as well. And maybe one thing we'll commit to, Jason, is we'll make a promise on behalf of the CERT team, perhaps, but in the show thread, if you're asking questions inside of that thread and it's something that we need to divert over to CERT, we'll be able to follow up with them and get them. They're on DevCentral. We'll be able to get them to answer some of that stuff on there where it makes sense as well.
Yep, for sure. And I do have a question here from Al. Wanted to know, all our F5s are an internal perimeter network, not exposed to the internet. So are they still impacted? From the internet, the answer would be no. From internal, if you have somebody in your network, then yes, they're still they're still impacted. That vulnerability is still there. So if somebody gets into your network and the bad actors are there, you're still vulnerable from their traffic. You might still be vulnerable from, employees that are wanting to test, hey, is this thing real? And, you have those that are like, oh, I want to test that and I don't have a test box. And it's like, oh, nope, yep, that works. So not saying I've ever done anything like that.
Yeah.
But the reality is people are curious. And so it is vulnerable even if it's internal. So, but your network. And so you have to make those business decisions. The technical reality is, yes, it is impacted, even if people can't necessarily get to that from the outside, they can still get to it from the inside.
Cool.
Another comment here from Peter. It's sad there's no option for users, only iControl access, so the same user can't access GUI or SSH. Yeah, ports exposed, and I suppose that that could be built into something like your Apache Tomcat, whatever there is listening. But the more complexity you have, the more vulnerabilities that might arise from rules gone wrong, right? So.
Hey, one other thing I'm going to mention as well, I'm just throwing this out there. There's a number of folks that might be watching this show because they're into security research. If you check out f5.com/careers, we are hiring like 600 people, trying to hire like 600 people right now, including a lot of folks on the security side. So if that's a topic of interest for you, you're at various points in your career, wherever you're at in your career, check out our careers page. We're always looking for great folks to hire to help us out with our journey and further what we're trying to do here. So one little plug for our recruiters. All right, with all that being said, please check us out on community.f5.com. We'll have a show thread on there. Again, I said that the CERT team, our security incident response team, any questions that myself or Jason might not be able to answer on there, we will enlist them as well to help out with that kind of stuff. And then otherwise, as mentioned at the beginning of the show, we do live stream on this channel, youtube.com/DevCentral, every Tuesday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific on all our various topics. So subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and then, otherwise, we'll see everyone next Tuesday. Thanks a lot, Jason.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
The F5 community, DevCentral, has a new home. You can visit community.f5.com to get all your F5 technical questions answered or answer some yourself. We also got technical how-to articles, troubleshooting tips, and great implications humming. Of special note is our Crowdsource area, and this is where you can share your own code and insights with the DevCentral community. Membership is free and gets you access to special events, unique groups, and other enticing activities. Why don't you join today?